Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this public hearing held at 6 p.m. on March 28th, 2023. We here at the city of Fernie acknowledge that the city is located within Kukanamakas, the unceded traditional territory of Yakatapuia, and we recognize that we live and work within their vast lands. The Kanahunik are from Yakatapuia and are members of the Naha speaking peoples of British Columbia, Idaho, and Montana. I'll call the meeting to order and note that this meeting is being conducted by in-person electronic means in accordance with the Council of Procedure Bylaw number 2446. And I'll ask for mover and seconder for the following recommendation: that if the communication link to the specified place for this meeting is interrupted and cannot be restored within 15 minutes, the meeting shall adjourn and reconvene as soon as possible time that quorum can be achieved and public notice requirements met. Councilor Ramadas, Councilor Hamilton, any discussion? All in favor? Welcome, Councilor McIver, who's logging in remotely. We'll begin the public hearing, and I'll read the following. The following public hearing is convened pursuant to the Local Government Act to allow the public to make representation to council respecting matters contained in the following proposed bylaw. Zoning bylaw number 1750, amendment bylaw number 2482 to receive submissions from the public regarding the proposed rezoning of 1221 8th Avenue from R2 duplex residential to R1B single detached plus residential. At this hearing, any person.
Your worship, we skipped over item 5, public participation. We're in the public
We're
hearing.
in the public hearing.
Oh, my apologies.
At this hearing, any person present who believes their interest in property is affected shall be given an opportunity to be heard on matters contained in the proposed bylaw. No one will be or should feel discouraged or prevented from making their views known. However, it is important that all who speak at this meeting restrict their remarks to the matters contained in the bylaw. Those of you who wish to speak should, at the appropriate time, commence your address to the council by clearly stating your name and address. Then you may share your views with council. Members of council may, if they so wish, ask questions to you following your presentation. However, the main function of the council members this evening is to listen to the views of the public. It is not the function of council at these hearings to debate the merits of the proposed bylaw. After the hearing is concluded, council is not permitted to receive further submissions on the proposed bylaws. The mayor will reconvene the regular meeting and council may give further consideration to the proposed bylaws. So I'll ask our corporate officer, Mr. McConnell, to provide that hearing.
Thank you, Your Worship. I can confirm that the notice of public hearing to be held on today's date beginning at 6 p.m. was posted on the city's public notice posting places on or before March 14th, 2023, and was advertised in the March 16th and March 23rd, 2023 editions of the Free Press newspaper. In addition, the notice of public hearing was mailed to registered owners within a 100-meter radius of the subject property on or before the March 14th, 2023. And handed to the occupants of those properties on or before March 14th, 2023.
Thank you, Mr. McConnell, and we'll now have a staff presentation from our Director of Planning.
Thank you, Mayor Logan. So as Mayor Milligan mentioned before, council is bylaw 2482. The address is 1228th Avenue. It's a rezoning from R2, which allows for duplexes as well as single family dwellings to R1B.
Your worship, sorry to interrupt, we can't hear you at the specified place.
Oh, sorry, we were having an issue with the presentation. Apologies, Ms. Rhodes, and I think we've got it sorted now.
Okay, so the rezoning is again from R2 duplex residential to R1B single detached plus residential. The purpose of the rezoning for the landowners would facilitate construction of a detached garage with a secondary dwelling unit above. As Mayor and Council can see from the zoning map, or the portion of the zoning map on the right side, majority of the two blocks at front 8th Avenue and 9th Avenue are all zoned R2 duplex residential. 1202 on the address there on the corner is zoned R1B, which allows for single detached dwelling as well as a laneway house, which is present on that site. The site in question, 1221, has a single detached dwelling with an attached garage with parking for 2 off-street parking stalls. The proposal is consistent with the OCP. There's policies related to housing affordability, housing diversity, managing development that is consistent with, in regard to managing development. It optimizes existing infrastructure that's in place at this location. The site is designated by Schedule B of the OCP as infill intensification. We also look at the affordable housing strategy. It's consistent with that document. That document stresses the provision of rental housing for seniors and people of all ages as well as families. The housing needs report from 2020, it's important to note that that document, it also encourages rental housing and notes that there's a growing demand for rental housing in Fernie. And that was a core need, rental housing that was identified in the document. There's 3 letters of concern that were received by the city in response to the public notice. The first concern relates to the secondary dwelling units are 2 to 3 stories tall and not fitting in with the character of the neighborhood. Compared to modifying the house by adding an attached suite. Secondary dwelling units are only allowed to a maximum building height of 7.5 meters, which from a construction standpoint only has a 2-story build form. There's no 3-story secondary dwelling units in the annex neighborhood. If the applicant wanted to build a higher, if it was to go through and council was to grant this rezoning, the applicant wanted to build a higher secondary dwelling unit, you'd have to apply, or they would have to apply for a variance, which would not be supported by staff. Secondary detached dwelling units are suitable typology or building form in the annex neighborhood due to the floodplain. What we see there and have for many years is the creation of these dwelling units with usually a 2-story attached garage, which is exempt from meeting the flood construction level, and we have the secondary dwelling unit above. So that's a common typology in the annex neighborhood. Second concern relates to providing adequate off-street parking, as on-street parking leads to snow removal issues in the winter. In this case, as I mentioned, there is a single attached dwelling on site. They already have an attached garage. There's a driveway in front that provides the opportunity for 1 parking stall. To meet our regulations, when I drove by there the other day, they had 2 parking or 2 cars parked on the driveway. I guess a half the car would be on the boulevard. The point is, it pulls it off the street. And in terms of meeting the parking regulation, if that would be reviewed during building permit issuance, they could construct a parking stall in the front yard. There's ample room and it's flat. So they could build a stall next to the existing driveway to meet the bylaw requirements. And of course, they do have the ability to access if they do, and they intend to do it, my understanding, do a two-car garage, they could access from the lane. Particularly in the summer months, you got 7 months where there's typically no snow in Fernie. If they do wish to access it during the winter, they're responsible as per the snow and ice removal bylaw to clear the snow themselves from the lane to provide access to the two-car garage that they're planning to build. In terms of our winter snow plowing regulations, as stated there, from November 1st to April 15th for our applicable bylaw. And this is, a scenario we don't want to happen, given that they do have the ability to provide, particularly in the front 3 off-street parking stalls. They are able to, as anybody in the annex, to park on alternate sides of the street, and depending on the day. And if they don't park on the right side of the street, our bylaw has been quite proactive in ticketing violators to that extent. One issue that we are looking at to improve for next year, and I expect a bit of a debrief with our snow removal parking enforcement is unfortunately, we only have access to one snowplow in Fernie this winter, and according to the bylaws, because that plow has been down.
So, sorry,
Tow truck.
Thank you.
And that truck has been down for some periods during the winter, so that's been problematic in terms of helping out our snowplow operators remove the vehicles from the streets to have more efficient snow plowing. There was a concern that allowing detached secondary dwelling units as an additional fire hazard. This would be dealt with at the building permit stage. The applicant would be required to build a secondary detached dwelling unit to meet the BC building code requirements, particularly with regard to snow or fire spread concerns. This would be addressed again during the building permit process, and the building inspectors would look at the amount of fenestration or openings for windows and doors, and to ensure that they meet the fire code and the building code with regard to that concern. Additionally, the density of the site did not increase as the R2 and the R1B zones both allow for 2 dwelling units. There was a concern raised in regard to emergency response would be impacted as the lanes are narrow. There is a fire hydrant located at the corner of 8th and 12th Street. And if the fire department was required to fight a fire, typically they fight it from the avenue. That's their general practice. If need be in the summer, they could, again, it's not typical, they could get a fire truck in the lane, given that it's a fixed 1 meter wide lane. The concern was also raised that the secondary dwelling unit will cast a shadow on adjacent gardens in the neighborhood. With the current zoning, the subject property would be allowed to build an accessory building up to 5 meters high, with a 1.5 meter rear setback, with their overall footprint that would fit the allowable 40% coverage. So basically, that's a garage similar to the one next door to the north. They would be able to build that. That would be 0.5 meters lower than the secondary dwelling unit. So that the R1B zoning allows for a 7.5 meter tall structure with a 6 meter rear yard setback, also within 40% site coverage. Obviously, it does allow for taller buildings, although with the setback, there would be a greater bit of buffer room there. And as I mentioned, there's a 6.1 meter wide lane as well. As well, there's two mature spruce trees or evergreen trees in the rear of this property that already cast some shade to the rear. Furthermore, the subject property as well as surrounding properties are currently zoned R2. And this current zoning, any of the existing single family dwellings could be replaced with a duplex. And create 2 dwellings per parcel. There is potential for a common variance for this type of development. The 6 meter wide or 6 meter wide rear yard setback could be reduced through variance. We'd look at the neighborhood impact at that time with the variance application. So to conclude the summary, council provided first and second readings to bylaw 2482 on the February 28th. The notice of public hearing requirements have been met. And as I mentioned, 3 public comments received in concerns of this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Lennox. Any clarifying questions for Director Lennox? Councilor McIsaac.
Thank you, Worship. Just a quick question with regards to one of the issues that was raised in the letter, which was with regards to the current level of intensification and densification going on in the annex. A few years ago, I want to say 2 or 3 years back, I think we did a manual count and saw that about 6 or 7% of the lots in the annex had secondary dwellings on it already, which is remarkably low number. And I'm wondering if perhaps Director Lennox can let us know whether or not that number is appreciably changed. Has intensification and densification advanced considerably over the last few years?
I wouldn't say it's appreciably increased. Typically, we see 2 or 3, maybe 4 of these type of rezonings a year. So I think in this case, as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, there is a existing R1B zone with the existing secondary dwelling on the corner that takes access off the street. So given the proximity of that, that was raised as a concern by one of the persons that wrote in their letter that they felt that they may be being surrounded by this type of development. But overall, I would say that there has been a significant increase of secondary dwelling units in the annex. It's been steady, but we haven't seen entire blocks turn into that type of built form and typology.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lennox. Seeing no further questions, I'll ask our corporate officer to provide a summary of correspondence.
Yes, Your Worship, as indicated by Director Lennox in his report, 3 letters were received from the public notice. All 3 are attached to the agenda, so council has all those presentations, and they were all in opposition.
Thank you, Mr. McConnell. I'll now ask if the applicant would like to speak. I understand Darcy and Paula Eboy, I'm pronouncing that correctly.
They have put their hand up, so.
Yeah, please go ahead. We can't see or hear you yet. There you are.
Yeah, good evening, councillors and your worship. No, it was nice to see the presentation and see all the different comments that came in, and to see nice responses and have that explained. That even helped us out with a little bit of some things that we didn't understand. And yeah, no, we're just happy and thanking you for considering this today.
Thank you, Mr. Eboy. I'll now call for submissions from the floor. Ms. Rhodes, I'll check with you if there's persons present at the specified place who'd like to speak.
Yes, your worship, we have someone who's wishing to speak.
Hi, my name is Tom Slika, and it's my wife Diane, and we live at 1222 9th Avenue. We've been there for 37 years, and we have built a beautiful yard, and we've had great scenery where we are, and building and gardens and flowers, and we've been working hard at that for all the years we've been here. Now we're starting to infill in the city, and what you're doing is you're building walls all around the yards. You can sit in your yard now, and where we could see mountains, now we see walls. Makes it very undesirable to be sitting in our yards. We'll have them just about all around us now. It's just not real nice to look at all the time. We enjoy our yards so much. One thing I don't understand is that we're talking about housing affordability. All we're doing is just renting houses to people. It doesn't really give them a better opportunity to purchase a house. What that does is if you're gonna go and put secondary dwellings on all the lots in the annex, which is what it looks like you're trying to do, or what you're getting done here. And I see it's done by the government is all pushing for this because we want to infill everything, taking away all the beautiful yards and green space we have. How does that make it more affordable for a young couple to come into town and purchase? Now they can't purchase one house on a lot. Now they got to purchase two. So their only option will be to rent. So to me, I do not see how this helps people purchasing a house. I think it's more geared to straight rentals. And we'll just put as many in the annex as we can. The new subdivisions that are getting built, and I'm just going to use a couple as examples. I'm not picking on them or, pointing fingers or anything, but you make these new subdivisions, Montaigne, Cedars. I know that's not all in the city, properties, but all those houses, they're all mansions with yards cut into a scenic area. They don't want gardens, they don't want rentals. They just want to have those. So when we're making subdivisions, why don't we make a few more that has like townhouses and that, instead of trying to infill and affect all the neighbors around? To me, I think we came here 44 years ago, and of course, living in the mountains is awesome. That's why we're all here, I think. I just can't believe that we want to take some of us residents in the annex just because we live there and build houses taller, like seconds, and some of them like 2.5 stories because the basement isn't all the way in the ground anymore, but there's one and it's at 1291, just got built. It's got a basement and 2 floors, full floors. It's the maximum height in the attics you can go. It looks to me that is the way we're trying to build them all. So I'm not sure, I'm still against it, but I mean, it looks like you people have already got your minds made up and you've got all the bases covered, but I just want to let you know that we are very unhappy with it. And I'd hate to see the whole annex go that way. I think we should leave some yards that are at least open a bit. So thank you very much for allowing us to speak. And
thank you, sir. Appreciate your.
right.
Ms. Rhodes, is there anyone else online who's identified they'd like to speak?
Yes, we have 2 people wishing to speak. I'm going to allow Rachel to speak first.
Can you hear me?
You can, Rachel. Please give
Okay.
us your residential address, please, and you have 3 minutes.
I live at 1241 8th Avenue. We are direct neighbors to Paula and Darcy. There's a few issues that I think Mr. Lennox failed to address. So in the wintertime, if they have on-street parking, they have to park on the other side of the street on certain days and whatnot. What he failed to mention is that the other side of the street is not a street. We have a high density multi-unit building there with inadequate parking, so you can't park in front of that. The next building is only driveway. The next building across the street is only driveway because they're split lots. The next building over is that same split lot, no parking. And then the corner building has a rental in the basement, and that is also their parking spot. So there is actually no parking on the other side of the street whatsoever. I, in my letter, wrote a comprehensive list of the density of the rental units that we have in here now. The only one that was mentioned was the one house on 13th Street. What he failed to mention is that the house next door, which is also on my list, I'm not sure the numbers, but the house next door to that, it's a little greenhouse, is also a rental. And in their backyard, they have a tiny house, which is also a rental. They were allowed to put that there because it circumvents bylaws because it's not a permanent building, it's on wheels. So they have 2 rentals there. The next house, the red house across the street, is a potential 3 rental place. They have an upstairs rental, a basement rental. Then they have a garage suite in the back alley with a rental above that. It's ran as a business right now with no off-street parking. So people park constantly on my neighbor, Bill Badley's grass in front of our house on our property constantly. So in this tiny little area of the annex, it is intensely high density. We don't have a calm, quiet street. This isn't something like 11th, Avenue or farther down. We are right close to multitude of businesses. So we constantly have gym people, because we're right kitty corner from the gym, parking on our street. Snow removal is constantly a problem. Now, Paula and Darcy have a perfect opportunity to create in their house a duplex, which we would feel perfectly, you know what, that's what it's zoned for. They can have their upstairs apartment and a basement duplex. That's how it was rented to them initially by the initial owner, Euron. He lived in the basement, they lived upstairs. Parking was always an issue. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm so sorry, I'm gonna stop you there. You reached your 3 minutes. And I apologize, for the purposes of the public hearing, we'll have to get you to give us your full name, please.
Oh, Rachel Rebecca Dortman.
Thank you. And thanks very much for your input.
Thank you.
I will promote Christopher Bruce, who's wishing to speak.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me?
We can. Can you give us your full name and residential address, please?
Yes, my name is Christopher Inglis. I'm here on behalf of my mother at 1151 First Avenue in Fernie. Mayor and Council, one thing I think you need to give some direction to is to your staff and their staff recommendations. And I want to bring up 2 examples of the builds in Fernie, which totally look ridiculous, but the past council approved them. And that is just off of Highway 3 on 4th Street before you go up the hill. that big build that's happening beside Katrine Manor. You all got to admit, it does look really out of place there. And then another one going over the bridge, heading west out of town, West Fernie. And actually, this is really close to my heart because it's next door to my sister's place. The gigantic complex that they built next to my sister's house. She can't even look out her window because it's 3 feet away from the side of her house. So I really think you got to ask these people that are coming for variances and changing zones to come with a model, scale model, so you can actually see what they're actually talking about, and what they want to do, and how it's going to affect the neighbors. Not just let staff throw numbers and letters out and zones and heights when you don't even know what it's going to look like. Because I can't imagine how many people are surprised at what was built at those 2 other locations that I just mentioned. So I really think, yeah, I need to give staff some direction and also hold them accountable for what they're recommending. Like I said, those other 2 places look absolutely ridiculous in town. And by the sounds of it, this is going to be another one that's going to impede on the neighbors. These people have lived in Fernie a long time, and I think they deserve for their voices to be heard. Those are my thoughts. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Inglis. Ms. Rose, are those the conclusion of the online interest?
There is no one else wishing to speak.
Thank you so much. So I'll now return to the applicant and Mr. Ebo, if you want to respond to any of the submissions from the floor.
No, again, yeah, thanks for considering the proposal, and I do know, having dealt with the city in the past, a lot of these things, it has very rigorous or thorough, and we have to meet certain standards when we've done some other little bits of work. So I have no doubt if something was to happen in the future, that we would have to do the same thing, meet the building codes and be able to meet what the standards are. And as well, I'm just thankful just in general for this forum, for anyone's concerns. I talked to some of the long timers who've been here in the annex. You know, they remember when all of this was farm and field. That's all there was, just 1 or 2 places. And yet for all of us here, we all feel that our place is nice here, that our place belongs, and that we belong. And where we are now was some of their concerns, no doubt, at one point. And here we are. And we would all say, though, that we belong. So thank you for considering nonetheless, and for everyone's being able to share their concern. I appreciate having this forum.
Thank you, Mr. Evoy. Yes, Mr. McCollum.
Just let you go. I'm sorry, I was interrupting your worship. I just want to make sure that wasn't sure what was next on your.
Well, I was going to ask council had any questions before we got go. Seeing none. Well, thank you, Mr. Evoy, and thank you everyone who's provided input into this public hearing. And if there's nothing else, we will now adjourn the public hearing. Thank you. That will bring us into. Allow me to welcome everyone to the regular meeting of City Council of the City of Fernie Council for 6 p.m. on March 28, 2023. Although it's now 6:45 p.m. And once again, we acknowledge that the City of Fernie is located within Kukinamakas, the unceded traditional territory of Yakitat. We recognize that we live and work within their vast lands. Akanahunik are from Yakitat and are members of the Tanana speaking peoples of British Columbia, Idaho, and Montana. I will call this meeting to order. This meeting is being conducted by in-person and electronic means in accordance with Council Procedure Bylaw number 2446. And I will ask for a mover and seconder for the following recommendation. That if the communication link to the specified place for this meeting is interrupted and cannot be restored within 15 minutes, the meeting shall adjourn and reconvene to the soonest possible time that quorum can be achieved and public notice requirements met. Councillor Audie Kelly, Councillor Nixon. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Now I'll ask for a mover and a seconder for the adoption of the minutes of the previous council meeting from March 14th, 2023. Councillor Ramirez, Councillor Hamilton, any discussion?
Yes, please.
Councillor Nixon.
In the meeting minutes here, we have a mislabel for a name. And it's supposed to be English, not Bruce.
Thank you.
And there's two parts to that.
See that.
Thank you.
Corrected, thank you.
There was also just adoption of the agenda.
Yeah, I was gonna get to that. As soon as-
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's not, we've got a motion on the floor, we'll move that, and I was about to jump it back to
I'm
that.
jumping around, I apologize.
So,
Um,
then as a clerical correction, we will make that correction. But
Sorry, that was actually just the name provided by the speaker at the time. When we had that is who they announced themselves as.
perhaps we'll put English in brackets then.
I think so, yeah. That'd be so, I'll take that. This time. Electronically. I apologize for jumping the queue. Oh, we need to vote.
Yeah, with the amendment, the correction.
So I'm asking for a mover and a seconder for the minutes as corrected for March 14th, 2023.
I don't think, sorry, you have a mover and seconder for the minutes, we will make that correction, it's more of a clerical correction.
Okay.
It was brought to our attention, it's the kind of correction I can make without our board.
Thank
We
you.
will note it,
Awesome.
for sure.
Thank you.
You got a mover and seconder.
Any further discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous. Now I'll ask for an approval of the agenda and any late items. We have any late items? Councillor Hamilton, Councillor Audie Kelly. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Back on track.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll now open the floor to public participation. I invite the public in attendance or participating electronically who wish to comment on items listed on the meeting agenda in accordance with section 3.7.3 of the procedure bylaw to address council, excluding matters for which speakers must not address council regarding a matter for which a public hearing must be held or has been held pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of the matter or adoption of the bylaw. Speakers must not address council regarding a permit for which public notice must be given or has been given pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of issuance of the permit. And the speaker may only address council for a maximum of 3 minutes. And I'll ask Ms. Rhodes if there's anybody who wishes to speak.
We have an online participant, Christopher Bruce, wishing to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Rhodes.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, I'd just like to clarify one thing and maybe to educate Councillor Nixon a little bit. On my name that's displayed in the Zoom sign up, when it asks for your full legal name, I was typing out Christopher Bruce Inglis and it ran out of characters to let me fill in the last. I went to go back when registering and it wouldn't allow me to change it. So that is an error that I did not intentionally do. It's just something the system wouldn't accept. So I just wanted to clarify that on my original sign in when we went to online meetings during COVID.
Thank you for the clarification. Carry on.
Okay, and what I'd like to talk to you about is to do with the budget tonight on the snow removal. Will there be a chance during the budget process to talk about the snow removal?
Now is your opportunity, Mr. Inglis.
Okay, I'd just like the city to consider, and in no ways is my next statement a threat or anything else, but I'm just going to explain to you my intentions of moving forward. The city has not given my mom proper and safe access to her residence for either fire, ambulance, or police by not plowing the laneway or the road. So my next action, so city knows, and they put that in their budget, because you are going to need a lawyer fee, so it's part of the budget process, is I am going to seek those damages for plowing snow to give my mom safe, proper access to her house. So I'm just being very blunt and forward looking and telling you exactly what my intentions are. And like I said, it's part of the budget process. I've been fighting this snow removal now for 2-3 years. How you can deny a senior their access to their house for police, fire, or ambulance because of no snow removal. And my mom's lived there, I think she said 72 years, is beyond me. But to further educate the city staff, council, and mayor, I've also contacted W5, and they are very interested in coming into town and doing the story. So I hope we can get this story out nationally and really show what the city of Fernie is doing to the senior population. It seems like it's fallen on deaf ears, but now, unfortunately, trying to deal with the city, the CAO, has been very unbearable at times. And this is my actions going forward. I just wanted to be upfront and tell you of my concerns. The snow removal is still #1 priority in my area for my mother to live. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Inglis. Ms. Rhodes, is there anyone else wishing to speak?
No one else wishing to speak.
Thank you. This brings us to item number 6, consideration of bylaws and issuance of permits arising from public hearings or public notice periods, and a staff report from our Director of Planning.
Who will make the motion?
Perhaps it can help, Mr. Lennox. I'm not sure if there was a further presentation going to be made tonight, or if it was just, this is the opportunity for council to ask questions with respect to the bylaw public hearing that they held.
Yeah.
And then that if council so desired, it could at this time give third reading to the bylaw after the public hearing.
That's right.
Or if it wished, or council wished, they could bring the matter back to the following meeting. That's essentially what it is, whether or not we wish to move forward on third reading on bylaw 242.
Yeah, that was a recommendation that bylaws 1750 amendment bylaw 2482 2022 be given third reading.
Thank you, Mr. Lennox. Any questions for Mr. Lennox? Councilor
I did have one question that I feel I should have known the answer for, but don't off the tip of my tongue. But if the bylaw goes through, or the zoning change goes through, and if they do build a garage suite on the back, what is the mechanism to ensure that this landlord or any property developer actually plows their land to maintain access to that secondary dwelling unit in the garage suite? Is there any requirement for that?
Well, as I mentioned in the Councillor Hamilton, as I mentioned in my presentation when part of the public hearing, there is a bylaw, the snow ice and snow removal bylaw that requires the landowners to plow the lane. So there's a specific section in that bylaw. But that requires the landowners to plow the lane and not the city. But as I also mentioned, this site is kind of fortuitous in that it's flat and that there is an ability to put probably 2 more parking stalls in the front adjacent to the driveway itself. So with a minimal cost, they could construct 2 parking pads next to their existing driveway now, an additional 2 parking stalls. So what, you know, I haven't really seen or talked much to the other owners of secondary dwelling units, laneway houses that are in the interior. But there is an option where they can park, you know, in front of the house. And then during the winter months and then during the summer months, you know, 6-7 months of the year, they can use the driveway and park in the garage. But in terms of us compelling them to, you know, they choose not to plow the lane, we don't really have a mechanism in the section that requires them to do it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Knight. Councilor Kelly and Councilor.
Your worship, through to Director Lennox. Director Lennox, apologies, maybe I'm confused. The lane, the pipes and everything in that lane, is it safe to plow? Are they at a deep enough depth?
Yeah, Mayor Milligan through the Councilor Audio Kelly, that has been flagged by our engineering and operations department. We did send a referral to the operations department. They noted that the sewer line and the water line were 1.5 meters in depth. They did note, the former engineering tech did note that, you know, that could be cause for concern moving forward. If that in fact is the case, again, like I said, they do have the option of parking in the front of the house. Very difficult. It's easier to establish those parking points.
I'm sorry if I can ask one more question, Director Lennox. That area is zoned for duplexes.
Yes, as I noted at the beginning of that's right. So I did note that the zoning map on the first page of that PowerPoint on both sides of that block, there's with the exception of that one lot in the corner. Right on the corner that is some Norman B that does have a house and existing laneway house as well. But the whole lot is the whole lot, I should say.
So potentially people could apply and they could have duplexes
Correct, yeah.
there. Thank you.
Through the mayor to staff. As I recall, when I did my build, I was actually required to plan for off-street parking and provide that. And you mentioned that they may provide additional parking pads. Is there any hard requirement to have that off-street? Remember that?
Mayor Milligan, Councilor Smith, I probably should have been stronger in my wording. The review that we have, it goes through the planner. The planner ensures that there is off-street parking stalls on the site plan, and then when it goes to the building inspector, and we do their inspections in the field, part of the inspection process to ensure that those parking pads have been established off-street. Thank you, Mr. Lennox. Councilor Hamilton.
Thank you, to your worship, to Mr. Lennox. What is a functional definition of a duplex versus just having a secondary dwelling? I'll maybe leave that question. Would it not be possible for the applicant or any applicant, because currently is owned R2, to essentially build a second house right next door and connect it with like a porch to constitute them joining? Like, is there a function that they need to be joined to be R2, to be a duplex?
Yeah, we're relevant to the Councilor Hamilton. Yeah, there's a couple of elements there that I need to discuss. When you have a duplex, it has to be as per the zoning and subdivision policy services bylaw, that's two sets of services from the mains of the street to begin with. And then typically what we see in Fernie, that there's a new duplex recently built in the annex. Can't remember exactly the address, but typically what we see are side-by-side duplexes. So they have a common wall that they subdivide down after they get the building permits. Typically they establish a party wall, and then that common wall is a firewall, to address the party concerns as well as the concerns. So yeah, there has to be the definition of a solid wall that is fire separated in order for it to be a duplex. Since I've been here, I don't think I've seen a knockdown duplex. That seems to be a habit of the past. So side by side, so you can put it in the middle, and then you have 2 fee simple lots. But people are moving away from strata duplexes for insurance reasons. So in is duplexes that have 2 separate 30 million lots, each with a separate title.
Thank you, Mr. Lyon. Yeah. You had another question?
Yes, thank you. Through your worship to staff. What teeth does bylaw have around parking in that area?
Well, there's several bylaws that they enforce. As I mentioned, the main one is the streets and traffic bylaw. Second, where you have to park on alternate sides of the street based on the day. So they work in tandem with our operations department. And the communication is getting better between those departments, because they really have to work in tandem in order for it to be effective, particularly in places. The 2 problem areas that when I did the debrief today or yesterday for the Richmond area, as well as Canada Trail and a section of the annex. So they have to work in tandem with operations to get in front of them. And during the high snow days, 3 to 4 o'clock in the morning, they get out there, they're notified by the operators where the problem areas are, they ticket their cars. And then, but where the problem, as I mentioned earlier, this past winter has been is towing. Again, we only have 1 tow truck in town. And unfortunately, according to the bylaws, it's been down for repairs for a period of time, various times during winter. So to be effective, the tow truck has to come in right after bylaw tickets, get the cars out of there, so our operators can go in there and effectively clear the snow from the impacted areas. There's other infractions that they can use as well in various bylaws. Parking over sidewalks, parking too close to intersections, for a ticket as well. But it's an area that we're working on. That again, we want to improve the communications with the 2 departments moving forward for next winter, and hopefully we can find another tow truck that can help us out in terms of because getting fire emergency vehicles through those streets. We've got to get the vehicles out of there, and there's several on some of the older parts of town. There's several parking in the street.
Thank you, Director.
Councilor Nixon.
Thank you, Worship. Just curious about the shallow services again. What is the standard for the services in the, because if it's at 1.5, is it, since it's shallow there, so curious.
Your worship, through the Councilor Nixon, our subdivision development servicing bylaw standards do meet depth requirements now, but those are all historical depths. So they are existing non-conforming depths.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Johnson. Is there a follow-up?
Yeah, I do have a follow-up. So we should actually be preventing people from plowing those lanes, so it doesn't damage services. So how do we, in 10 years, when none of us are, well, maybe some of us will be still here, I don't know, but in a few years, what's to stop the homeowner from just plowing the lane and then freezing all the services in the lane? is there a covenant that we can put on the properties to make sure that they don't plow the lane, or just curious?
Ms. Jones?
Your worship, through to Councillor Nixon, our Public Works and Engineering Department are reviewing that application process and looking at where they can and cannot or should not be recommending that practice. And then as well, through our capital program and renewal of those names, we do construct them to the standard. So as we move through those older neighborhoods, they're not installed at those same depths where.
Thank you. Councillor.
Two questions. First question to the Director Jansen, what is the actual number in our current bylaw? Do you know?
Your worship, through the Councillor Hamilton, I couldn't speak to the rest.
Okay, thank you. The second part of my question. Parking, if I'm not mistaken, parking, setback variance, and all these other specific, site-specific things, they're determined at the building permitting stage, am I not correct? And right now, we're just discussing
That's
the rezoning and the actual offering the ability to potentially consider this in the future.
right through Maryland to Council Hamilton, that's correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Schuster has a direct question.
Yeah, thank you. Just a question actually for the general benefit of everybody involved in building anything with shallow pipes. Is it acceptable in the city of Fernie if the pipes aren't deep enough to have our value added by closed cell phones, I would think, available to developers, or just because it's quite a common problem? I'm sure these won't be the only people that have this.
Sorry, I don't understand.
To increase the R value above the pipe with the use of insulation or closed cell phone. Just a question, because I'm actually just genuinely curious.
Yeah, that's, I talked to the manager of engineering this morning about that, and that's something that could be definitely looked at for sure.
Thank you. Thanks for indulging my curiosity.
Thank you, Mr. Lennox. Mr. Romanowski, you look like you wanted to speak to that.
I think Mr. Lennox caught it, that it is something that could be considered and added as we look at our subdivision servicing bylaw and that update. But I don't think it's currently permitted, but would have to confirm that with our manager of engineering or director who are not present tonight to get council a specific answer.
Thank you. Mr.
Yeah.
Romanowski. Are there any further questions or discussion on this item? Councillor Romanowski.
I just have a follow-up question to Councillor Schuster as to what our value is to what.
The measure of installation.
Oh, okay.
That's why I need feet of
So with that in mind, I'll ask our corporate officers to read the staff recommendation.
Thank you, Your Worship. The staff recommendation is that zoning bylaw number 1750, amendment bylaw number 2482, 2022 be given third reading.
I'll move over Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Roundbus. Any further discussion? I would say, oh, I'm sorry, Councillor McCarthy. Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. I didn't have a question, but I did want to speak to this particular issue before it gets voted on. I'm very sympathetic to the concerns of the people that are living there. I actually lived just a couple blocks down from there 20 years ago. And 20 years ago, the number one complaint in the neighborhood was people parking. And that was before infills and intensification really started there. So that it has not changed, unfortunately. Parking is an ongoing issue over that entire area. I do, however, think it would be very unfortunate if an opportunity to create more long-term living space, and in this case, it's 2 dwellings versus 2 dwellings. It's, you know, as far as allowability goes, it's hardly an issue. I would think it'd be unfortunate if some of the parking challenges that are created by other people in the neighborhood end up stopping this particular opportunity from going forward. So I'm sympathetic to the challenges that are there, but I think parking problems, especially in the annex in Maintown, are an issue that council needs to solve, and we don't solve it by not allowing people to create more living space in our community.
Thank you, Councillor McCarthy. Before I call the vote, I also wanted to similar comments. I am sympathetic to the neighbors and the challenges they see in the neighborhood, but I do, echoing your comments, that adding to the supply of housing in the community is a key priority for us as a council, and it is consistent with our OCP, and like you, I'm not unsympathetic, but parking certainly is an issue we have to address. With that, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. On to item number 7, a presentation from the Elk Valley Economic Initiative from Mr. Taylor Jenkins.
Thanks,
Hello. Can everyone see my slides okay? Oh, I can't hear you or anyone, Nick.
Can you hear us now?
Perfect.
Okay. Please proceed. You've got 10 minutes.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. My name is Taylor Jenkins, and I am the coordinator for the Elk Valley Economic Initiative. Joining me today is Wendy McDougall, the executive director of the Fernie Chamber of Commerce and the host organization of the initiative. The Elk Valley Economic Initiative, or EVEI for short, is a regional economic development initiative made up of 8 voting members and 4 support organizations. The EVEI is governed and operates through terms of reference. The 8 voting members all have an equal vote, and the coordinator work plan is developed and approved by the committee. The city of Fernie sits on the voting committee and is represented by Lisa Jansen, the director of asset management. The purpose of the initiative is to collaboratively pursue regional economic development projects and initiatives in the Elk Valley, striving to expand opportunities and diversification for existing businesses. Community economic development is an approach to economic development that is driven by community social, environmental, and economic priorities, with a focus on improving quality of life and building a stronger local economy. Here, I have included examples of what economic development activities can include, with a focus on building partnerships and enhancing collaboration and communication among community organizations, businesses, and government. Effective regional economic development requires a long-term and strategic approach to create a more sustainable and resilient economy. Benefits can be quality of life improvements for local residents, long-term plans and a vision for the Elk Valley through sustainable development, and economic diversification planning and improvements, which will reduce the impact of economic downturns. It can also help address economic disparities and create more equitable economic growth across the region. Instead of focusing on attracting new big businesses to the region, community economic development first focuses on supporting local businesses grow and diversify their products and support locals who want to start new unique businesses. The EVEI is currently funded through an inter-community business licenses amounting to roughly $20,000 a year and relies on obtaining grant funding to meet its mandate and deliver projects. Core funding is essential for successful economic development by providing financial stability and resources for work to be carried out effectively. It also provides flexibility to respond to changing economic conditions and emerging opportunities. There are a lot of opportunities to leverage funding through economic development grants. Core funding allows existing funds to be leveraged to deliver large-scale regional economic development initiatives. For example, reports completed in 2021 and 2022 were funded through an economic development grant from our supporting partner, the Economic Trust of the Southern Interior. In 2021, the EVEI published 4 business retention and expansion reports, 1 for the Elk Valley and 1 for each community. 320 businesses were surveyed for this report and produced substantial Elk Valley business data. Specific action items were created from this report, and that is what has driven the EVEI's work in the last year and a half. In addition, 4 community profiles were completed, highlighting cost of doing business metrics, labor force data, and consolidated community information to support investment attraction and assist local businesses with workforce attraction and growth. From these, additional economic development work was completed to address the action items, and reports were compiled for the region. They were the 2022 Elk Valley Economic Development Officer document, the 2022 Investment Economic Development and Land First Point of Contact report, the 2023 Realtor report, and the 2023 Elk Valley Housing report. Additional action items were identified in each report and how the EVEI and its partner organizations can improve economic development in the Elk Valley. For reference, here are the title pages from the Fernie Bree report and Think Fernie, the community profile. This regional and community economic development work was possible by applying and obtaining the original grant funding to hire a dedicated staff member. I do want to touch on workforce housing briefly, as this is something the EVEI has been working on in the last few months and is a key part of economic development work identified by local businesses. The Elk Valley Housing Report is currently internal as we finish interviewing all 3 planning departments to gain additional information and data. Examples of action items identified in this report were providing housing society support. There's a lot of new funding coming through the BC government for housing societies to build attainable housing, and they need support through bridging the communication gap between them and housing partners, such as local developers, and increasing collaboration throughout the Elk Valley. We want to ensure housing grants are secured by local nonprofits and they have access to the necessary data for these grant applications. Additional action items coordinating regional collaboration with municipal planning departments to share best practices. This slide shows potential specific action items that could be accomplished in the coming year, developed through the research, work, and reports of the EVEI. One example would be to calculate the living wage for each community in the Elk Valley every year. Last year, the EVEI calculated the living wage for Fernie in collaboration with the Living Wages for Families BC. By obtaining the necessary data to make this calculation, including the median rental cost for a 3-bedroom house. This is important local data that can be expanded on year over year. So how do we as a region accomplish this work identified by local businesses? First, the EVEI outlined in my work plan to develop a sustainable plan for a permanent paid position for the EVEI moving forward that leverages the ICBL funds without the ongoing reliance for operational grants, and then present these findings and information to council with support of the chamber, and thus the reason Wendy and I are in front of you today. In that work plan, it was also outlined to meet with the regional district of East Kootenay to gain further understanding of an economic development service bylaw, which is in place for our neighbor, the Columbia Valley. You can see the title of this bylaw on the slide here. We are doing this work because of stated interest and demand from local businesses. The EVEI obtained chamber letters of support on initiating this service bylaw from all 3 chambers in the region. As such, myself, in collaboration with Director Jansen and the other 2 municipal members, have been in discussions with RDEC about setting up this economic development service bylaw. They have stated that the first course of action is to have council formally send a letter of request to the CAO of RDEC. It is then up to the Elk Valley Services Committee, of which all 3 Elk Valley mayors sit on, in collaboration with the regional district, to consider this project in their strategic planning. The EVEI has developed documents providing additional information to assist these discussions. The service area would consist of the City of Fernie, District of Sparwood, District of Elkford, and the Regional District of East Kootenay Area A. This is nothing new. In fact, there are similar agreements in place all around us, including Nelson area, Creston Valley, Kootenay Lake, and the Lower Columbia, which involve the regional district and have them contributing funds to regional economic development. An example of the additional information the EVEI has developed to assist this process is the Elk Valley Economic Development Officer document. It states that there should be active communication with councils and municipal staff, and if an EDO is hired, they should provide quarterly updates to each mayor and council. The document lists 5 key economic development categories that Elk Valley EDO should focus on, as identified by local businesses. The EVEI has done the initial work and is now passing on the decision-making to the mayors, councils, and directors of the Elk Valley. This is a rough breakdown of the expected yearly cost. These numbers are for context only. The specific numbers are up to the mayor and council through meetings with the regional district staff at the Elk Valley Services Committee. This graph is pulled from the EVEI's Economic Development Officer document. The next step is for Director Jansen to present a staff report with more detail on the bylaw. Then, if council and mayor are interested in exploring this bylaw and obtaining further information, A council resolution would be passed to submit a letter request to the CAO of RDEC. Once the letters of request are sent, the EVEI would present at the April RDEC meeting with the 3 Chamber of Commerce Board support. This does not mean that the bylaw will be established, but RDEC will initiate the process and work in collaboration with municipality staff to discuss specifics on how this service will be delivered. Additional engagement with full business community would be an asset here. RDEC would then meet with the mayors and the director of Area A through committee meetings to discuss final details and establish the bylaw. Then the Elk Valley is set to deliver regional community economic development driven by local business needs. For economic development processes to be effectively implemented, the Elk Valley must commit to long-term support of economic development processes. This means EVEI voting members, including municipal councils, must be prepared to invest in economic development to make positive changes in the region. Wendy will now briefly expand on the Fernie Chamber of Commerce support for this process. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, Your Worship and Council. My name is Wendy McDougall. I'm the Executive Director of the Fernie Chamber of Commerce. I'm here to show the support of the Chamber of the EVEI and the work that they've done, as well as the collaboration that they've done within the Elk Valley communities. At our last chamber meeting, Mr. Jenkins provided the board with an update on the EVEI and the work that's been done. The board is in full support of the EVEI to request the RDEK to establish an economic development service establishment bylaw. By passing the bylaw, it would give the Elk Valley communities the resources it needs to tackle some of these big issues that Taylor mentioned, which are aligned with our strategic initiatives such as workforce housing, business retention, and expansion. We've provided a letter of support documenting this resolution from the board meeting, and it's provided in the agenda in Ms. Jenkins' package. Thank you.
Council, any questions?
Sorry, Your Worship, we can't hear you at the specified place properly right now.
It sounds very garbled.
Would it be good to take a 1-minute break just to test, or if you want to do a quick sound test there, Ms. Rose?
You were starting to come in there, but if we could just do a sound check, starting with the mayor, please.
This is the mayor.
Councillor Hamilton.
Deputy Chief Robinson.
CAO Michael Bornowski.
Director Lennox.
We are starting to hear you as you move around the room, so I'm not sure what is going on there, but I think you can proceed.
Thank you, Ms. Rose. Sorry, Councillor Ramirez. Continue.
Thanks, Your Worship. My one question I had for Ms. McDougall or for Mr. Jenkins is, does an endorsement of bylaw mean an endorsement of the economic development officer as well?
No, as I understand it, based on what Mr. Jenkins has said, forgive me for speaking on your behalf, our endorsement is only to explore the possibility in conjunction with the other Elk Valley communities and the RDK Area A with RDK. No, it does not endorse the position or the establishment of the bylaw.
Yeah, Your Worship, to Councillor Ramirez, Mayor Milligan is correct. Yeah, the council resolution that would be passed would simply to initiate the process to begin exploring developing this bylaw. It does not mean the bylaw will be established. It's just putting it in front of the regional district to start looking at the financials and talking with the mayors and council to further that process along.
Thank you. Looking at the slide with all of the, I'm assuming they're all of the sponsors and supporters of Special Purpose. I'm curious, I don't see the College of the Rockies there, and I'm wondering if they're at all involved around the table. around your table, I should say.
My apologies, I'm just having a hard time hearing. Do you mind repeating the question?
Certainly, on the slide purpose, you've got what appear to be all of your sponsors and supporters, but I don't see the College of the Rockies. And I'm curious if they sit around your table at all.
Thank you for the question. Your worship, to Councillor Hamilton. College of Rockies does not sit at the table at the Elk Valley Economic Initiative. It is the three chambers of commerce, the three municipalities in the Elk Valley, Tech as the industry partner, and then the Tobacco Plains, which currently have a vacant seat. And then our four supporting organizations is the BC government, as well as Community Futures East Kootenay and Columbian Basin Trust.
Thank you.
Ms. Rhodes has just pointed out that apparently after Mr. Jenkins speaks for a bit, it takes a bit for the microphone in the room to pick up. So after Mr. Jenkins speaks, maybe if we just waited a few seconds before we picked up the rest of the conversation, that would be helpful. Okay, I apologize for that.
The powerful tenor of your voice, Mr. Jenkins.
Okay.
The boss is every one.
Are there any other questions from representatives?
I'll move that we send a letter of recommendation.
I think that item comes up further down the, under 9.1. Ms. Jensen. Hold on until that time. Thank you both.
Thank you very much for listening.
That brings us to item 8.1, the 5-year financial plan and the staff recommendation. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder for the following recommendation: that council adopt the 5-year financial plan 2023 to 2027, bylaw number 2487, 2023. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Nixon. Any discussion? Seeing none. Checking on the screen. All in favor? Councillor Cuddy, vote. As such, the 5-year financial plan is passed. Thank you. That brings us to item 9, business, and 9.1. Following on from the presentation we just saw, a staff report from our Director of Asset Management, Jansen. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Red light is green. Good evening, Your Worship and Council, and thank you to Taylor and Wendy for a great backgrounder. You moved the resolution. Just kidding, I'll give you my quick presentation. So I'll be brief, as Taylor did provide some really great background here for you this evening. Technical issues here. There we go. So I'm here tonight to give you a quick briefing on the overview of the existing EBI. Really just one slide. Taylor spoke to most of that, those items, and then just reiterate the support that's coming from the community in the Elk Valley in continuing conversations around a more sustainable service delivery model for economic development in the Elk Valley, and just formally ask for your commitment to continue to pursue in collaboration engagement around this with the RDK and the partners. So specifically, I'm not asking for endorsement on the scope of work, a job description, the governance model, or any funding strategy or budget. all of that work would be what we would identify as options in exploring a more formal service area. I had a quick note that I wanted to speak to that. What did I write here? The current membership, to Councillor Hamilton's question, is based on our terms of reference for the EEI, and determining who should be at the table in terms of the governance of this future model is part of that process. So right now we have the terms of reference for the EEI that could be reviewed, but that's currently who are the members on that committee. Okay, so earlier on the agenda, so Taylor spoke to the EEI, who provided that background work and an update on the work that has been underway in the last year and a half. There is value in finding a time later this year to do a deeper dive in some of the information in those reports, because it's really quite valuable information and relevant to your creating awareness around that. So we'll have to slot that into a committee meeting at some point here in the future. But my report is basically intended for context and giving you examples of what budgets could look like, giving you a background of how we currently fund, identifying the opportunity that the business licensing fees could be reviewed in the future, as they are fairly low in the industry and across the region here. So I'm just quickly revising a couple of my speaking notes, because Taylor did such a great job here. I don't want to waste anybody's time. So what I've seen is in the last 8 months of being on this committee is really great momentum on the file, and especially since Taylor has come on as that administrator position. I'd like to specifically highlight the work that he's done in building relationships in the Elk Valley and bringing people and organizations together through his open engagement approach. So he worked with chambers, local governments, housing providers, developers, and realtors, to name a few. Again, I've been on the periphery of EVI for several years, and just sitting here since September, it's really clear that there's like a synergy around this topic. And with the unsustainable service delivery model of 18 to 20,000 annually coming from a few municipalities to deliver this service, and then scrambling to chase grants to do projects, it's not a sustainable model. And we were quite lucky to have a really great operating grant that came from SCBC, but that money has dried up and we no longer will have a coordinator at the end of April. So it is pertinent that we make some decisions, otherwise we are going to go back into a mode of looking for more grants, looking for another person, as Taylor will not. I mean, he's welcome to apply for the job, but we right now are, the job ends in April. So again, unsustainable. The reality that the challenge brings, again, is just that side of the desk sort of portfolio on the part of staff. In Fernie in particular, I can't speak for Alfred and Sparwood. They do have a little bit more integration of economic development in their job descriptions for certain people, but in Fernie here, we're really doing it as a side portfolio. So adequately resourcing it and starting the conversation here is quite important if we want to advance this in the region. So attached to my report are the formal letters. Wendy spoke to the one from the Fernie Chamber of Commerce, but we've got also the ones from the Elford Chamber of Commerce, as well as Sparwood Chamber of Commerce. Taylor has presented to both local governments up the valley, and those councils will be receiving a staff report in the next 2 weeks, seeking the same resolution. So we've demonstrated support here from the EVI committee itself and from the business community via the Elk Valley Chambers. that is a large scope of business members, but we do recognize that there are other members, business in the Elk Valley that are not members, and so through this process, identifying ways to engage them as well. So I'm here today to basically ask for your leadership in being the first Elk Valley municipality to pass a resolution to say, let's formally have some conversations around what a sustainable service delivery model looks like for this. So again, we're not asking for a budget or a commitment for a bylaw. The timing is, the reason we're here is that RDK annually do their strategic priority setting, and their corporate officer has indicated their process is, let's get formal letters of support from each municipality requesting that we consider this as a project to explore. And so that's what I'm here asking for tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Jensen. Any questions? Seeing none, I just wanted to comment that I am very keen to advance this conversation, not simply for sustainable delivery model, but to advance a conversation for a regional approach to regional collaboration here in the Elk Valley with my fellow mayors and area aid director. And I want, I very much would like to begin that conversation formally, and this strikes me with an endorsement from this council as a commitment to the exploration of that idea.
I couldn't have said it better myself. As a business owner and entrepreneur in this community now for over 15 years, one thing that's always struck me is the lack of collaboration up and down the valley. And so to see this come before us today, I'm excited to see that valley-wide regional economic development is at the forefront of the discussion. And as I tried to jump the gun earlier, I'm definitely looking for that.
Any other comments or questions? Councillor Kelly, Kelly, sorry.
Thanks, your worship, through to Director Branson. You mentioned funding is basically dried up, is the use of that term. So were there any opportunities to look for some gap funding while all of this other stuff is going on? Because my understanding was that CBC has intakes in April and fall.
Yeah, thank you. Through your worship to Councillor Kelly, we are looking at that and discussed at our last committee meeting. We have been topping up the administrator position with our reserve funds and are actively looking for some operating grants. So we are looking, but there's no guarantee. So
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Rushing.
Thanks, your worship. Director Jensen, any kind of sense of, what a good economic development look like at other municipalities or other local governments?
yeah, thank you for your question, your worship, through to Councillor Ramadas. Part of that would be, I can't speak to, can't answer that question, but through the conversation and the work with the RDK and our partners, we would identify that. The RDK does have an existing service area that operates very similar to what we're talking about up in the Columbia Valley. Part of the initial project work would look at existing regional services that are formerly operating like that in the region. And then in Taylor's report, he included several examples across the interior BC as well. So
just wanted to understand, like, qualitatively, like how, what does food look like? Like, I saw in the report, there are several municipalities having the same bylaw services available. I was just wondering, any sense of, what are we trying to achieve here?
thank you, your worship, through Councillor Otis. I would say that good looks like, let's make sure it's aligned with what our community priorities are. And so as long as we're constructing that model, that service delivery model in a way that we're actively able to bring information from the communities and set priorities and deliver on those priorities. So in terms of who delivers it, whether it's a contractor or a paid staff position through the RDK or another organization. There's benefits and weaknesses to all of those, and we would look at those options through this process to be able to meet the Elk Valley needs.
Thank you.
Not at all. Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll ask Mr. McCollum to read the staff recommendation.
Certainly, the recommendation is that council provide a letter to the RDEK CAO requesting that an Elk Valley Regional Economic Development Service Area project be considered during their 2023 strategic priority setting process.
Moved by Councilman Hamilton, and seconded by Councilor Nixon. Any further discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Moves us on to item 9.2. A staff report from our deputy fire chief.
Your worship, share my screen if I may. Everybody read that?
Yeah.
I've only got one slide. So thank you, your worship, members of council. I'm here tonight seeking board resolution to partner with the RDEK on another grant. It's not the same grant as last time. This one is the EOC grant. EOC stands for Emergency Operations Centre. It's very similar to the grant last time. The UBCM, through their Community Resilience Initiative, allow regional districts to partner with municipalities on grants to increase grant allocations. The grant is for $30,000 per municipality, and the RDK have approached 3 municipalities, the Columbia Valley, ourselves, and the City of Cranbrook. Along with themselves, make up 4 partners for a total of 120,000. That is basically broken down as we see there. They're looking at spending about $45,000 on equipment, 50,000 on training, and then 25,000 on the regional EOC upgrades. The regional EOC is used quite a lot by the City of Fernie if there is an incident that overwhelms our resources. We typically don't operate an emergency operations centre here in Fernie, an activation. We operate what is known as a command post, and we deal operationally with the incident at hand, with the response. And we offload a lot of the administrative work to the regional EOC in Cranbrook. And so by partnering with them in this grant, we are actually, even though we don't necessarily see all that money, we do see the benefits of that money because they are improving their own facilities as well. We take advantage of. As part of the equipment, the 45,000 there, we identify laptops, PAL cameras and things like that. As I say, we operate a command post here in Fernie, and when we do that, we're obviously away from the EOC in Cranbrook, and so by purchasing this equipment, it will allow us to be more vertically connected. So we don't necessarily need to send a representative from the City of Fernie to sit in the regional EOC to have our voice there. We have better vertical communications, and it would allow us to keep our resources local and dealing with the situation at hand. And so we will be benefactors of some of that $45,000 in terms of laptops and another owl camera to put in where we set up our command post. And they are also looking at spending some of that money to sort of what they're sort of calling mobile EOC, so that if they need to hit the road and they need to come out to Fernie to assist us, then they will have that capability as well. Around the training component, we've asked them to put on Incident Command System 200. The Chief Morgan asked for that, and that's one of the courses that they're looking at. They're also strongly looking at team building and psychological stress management, resilient minds, recognizing the fact that sitting in an ELC, sitting in an operation is highly stressful to those involved. And we want to provide training to support those individuals. A lot of the emergency management training is provided online free of charge by EMCR. And so whilst I'm not necessarily directly looking at that, that will also be a factor as well. And if there are courses identified that are not available online, then they will look at those face-to-face as well. And by joining with them, by partnering with them, we quite often go to training in Cranbrook. And the benefit of that is we then get to train with all our surrounding neighbourhoods, surrounding municipalities.
And we don't get to meet the people that we will be directly involved with in this, because quite often the incidents don't just affect the city, only affect the surrounding people. So yes, that's sort of where I'm at tonight. I'm asking for a board resolution to partner with the RDEK and have them support the grant. There will be no staff time at the city for other than a bit of the deputy chief's time to talk with them and decide what we need. They're not asking us for any money. We don't have to administer the funds. They will receive all the funds. They will administer it themselves. It's all on their own staff to make the purchases, do all the administrative work with the final reporting. And so from our perspective, it's very minimal. It's a lot of my time. So thank you for your time. Any questions?
Thank you, Deputy Chief. Any questions? I have one, sorry, just quickly, under the training item, the Emergency Preparedness and Business Continuity Conference, what does that look like?
Your worship, so annually, I think it's UBCM and a group of contractors, they put on an annual conference where emergency managers go and they then deliver the new latest and greatest things in emergency management. It's a 2-day conference, typically in Vancouver. The grant is looking to send 10 people on that conference, and so I would suspect 2 at least from the city. So I went myself to it last November. It's generally November, and that was as an expense to the city of Fernie. The work we send this year won't be an expense to the city of Fernie. It will be covered by the grant.
Thank you. And business continuity refers to the business of the city of Fernie in that circumstance.
Yes, Your Worship. It's more, it sort of touches on response, but it's more to do with the recovery after the event. And certainly the policy is now moving towards risk reduction and resiliency and focusing heavily on recovery and mitigation ahead of time, and trying to cut back on the dollars needed to be spent on response, because a dollar spent in response or in recovery and mitigation, you're saving $10.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councilor Nixon.
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. Just curious about the timeline. So when do we get it? I mean, if it's
Your worship to the council, Nixon. So the grant submission is the end of March. UBCM typically say they need 90 days to approve the grant. Although in saying that, they did approve the ESS one, not officially yet, but more quickly than that. And so the grant will go in March, and I would suspect we would find out within certainly within 90 days anyway. It has been accepted.
Possible. Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, I ask you to make a recommendation.
I will do, Your worship. That the staff recommendation is that the Regional District of East Kootenay, RDEK, be authorized to submit a joint application on behalf of the City of Fernie to the Union of British Columbia Municipalities, UBCM, for community and emergency preparedness fund, CEPF, grant for emergency operations centers and training to support the regional EOC readiness project to build regional emergency operations capacity, and that the RDEK be authorized to receive and manage the funds and to provide overall grant management for the project.
Right. Well, along with that, Councilor Hamilton, seconded by Councilor Ramdas. Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. That moves us on to item number 10. And the first item of correspondence, which had a request from the Fernie District Arts Council to designate the Wednesday socials as a municipally significant event. And we were provided with a sample resolution, but I wondered if there was any conversation required. Seeing none,
Nothing more than to say it seems pretty significant.
It is indeed. Thank you, Councilor Hughes. So I'll read the resolution. That the city of Fernie council designate the Wednesday social as a municipally significant event. And the neighboring. Councillor Ida Kelly, seconded by Councillor Shoesmith. Any?
I do have one question, sorry, Joe.
Okay, no, please.
Is this something that will need to be done on an annual basis, or do we do it once and it's there in perpetuity? What is the mechanism?
I understand this, or it's renewed annually, but I stand to be director. Councillor McCarthy.
Thank you, Your Worship. With direct experience with this, I have been advised by the province that yes, it does have to be, a resolution has to be passed annually in order to reissue the municipally significant event status.
Thank you for that, Councillor McCarthy. Any further discussion? Councillor Shoesmith.
Exactly what sort of benefits are there to the event? If we acknowledge its significance by designating it this way, like what actual effects will there be here?
That's a fair question, although I'm trying to recall from the letter.
I would submit that Councillor McCarthy goes better as well.
Thank you. Councillor McCarthy, please.
I missed that one.
Thank you, Your Worship. To Councillor Shoesmith's question, the primary benefit to the organization is one of finances with regards to alcohol sales. Most currently for festivals and events in BC, you're required to demonstrate that any sales that happen above their prescribed pricing for beer or wine or cider or hard liquor are going to some other source. So you're using it to fund something else. Perhaps it's, minor hockey or some other, beach volleyball, who knows. In the case of an event that's identified as municipally significant, they're allowed to use excess funds earned from liquor sales to fund their own event. So it's assumed it will be an ongoing, annual type event, and the excess funds from those sales will help to support the event itself. You do not have to demonstrate that the excess funds will be spent on other activities. That's the primary benefit.
Thank you, Councillor McCarthy, once again. Any other questions? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Item 10.2, we've been invited to the Coal Miner Days Parade. And I am curious, have we participated in the past? And did Sparwood participate in the Grizz Days Parade? Do we know? And I very much enjoyed my ride in the fire truck with Chief Morgan.
Yeah, we have participated with the Stoop Breaker in the past. But we haven't since before COVID.
Okay, thank you. I don't know that we need a resolution of anything at this point. Okay.
It's for information.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And item 10.3, there's like a lot to talk about. The correspondence that's going on. Item 10.3, call for nominations, AKBLG. I just wanted to ask council if they had any questions, comments that they'd like to make. Councilor Kelly.
I did have a question. Do the nominations, are they done ahead of time?
Yes, perhaps Councillor McCarthy, I see he's shaking his head. They can be done ahead of time. You can get someone to nominate you and sign off on that, or there are also nominations on the floor at the AKBLG convention, which is how I looked into my.
Yeah, it's squeaked in.
So, are we able to re-nominate Councillor McIsaac if he's willing ahead of time? Because I think his term ends.
Yes, if he's willing.
His head is moving in and out of the manner.
Yes, I am planning to run again for the AKBLG for the vice president position. So I will be seeking nominations from my fellow elected officials in advance.
We'll think about it.
It's just for the record, it's not something that has to be decided at this council meeting. It's more a case of alerting those people who haven't been involved in the process before, and so that you'll also understand why you might get a request from an elected official as to with regards to this.
Perfect.
Are we able to nominate Councillor McIsaac now? We can wait?
We don't do it, we can wait.
Well, I was trying to jump the gun, Councillor Hamilton. Thank you, Councillor McIsaac.
I appreciate that, Councillor Adia Kelly, and I'll be in touch.
And lastly, thank you all. And lastly, we received the letter from the RCMP on community priorities. And I wondered if the council had any feedback or comments.
I did have one comment. I'm happy to see that traffic enforcement is top of their list. I cross the highway 4 times a day on my way to and from work and dropping my daughter off at school, and invariably half of those crossings, someone runs a red light at 13th in the highway. Usually it's a large transport truck. So I have seen CBSE vehicles there quite regularly, which is encouraging, but yeah, we just need to do something to reduce speeds and enforce traffic laws on that highway through town, because it's shocking, quite frankly.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Adia.
I have had a few people, your worship, talk to me about school zone speeds as well. So I'm hoping that the traffic enforcement, there'll be some focus on that as well.
Thank you. We do have a regular engagement, Mr. Bomarowski and myself, with the detachment commander. And yeah, we will certainly raise that on your behalf.
Thank you.
Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. Will they be coming in and giving us some updates? It's like they have.
They will, and thank you for the question. Mr. Bomarowski, I'm not sure have we landed on a schedule?
We have not landed on a schedule yet, your worship, but we have landed on, I think, a general framework, and I'll confirm that with the detachment commander and the 2IP, and make sure that we're amenable to the presentation schedule and template. We're also going to invite them to participate a little more directly in leadership team meetings with the senior staff leadership directly in the city of Fernie. We're trying to improve some of that communication on both sides.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Bomarowski. Councillor Schuster.
I'd just like to repeat and hammer home Councillor Adia Kelly's thoughts about the school zones. That definitely is a area that can be quite concerning for people.
Thank you. Councillor.
Speaking of school zones, can we perhaps give the RCMP direction on the school zone right here? Coming up the hill, the amount of people that are not slowing down by Brick House GS building. Yeah.
We can certainly have that conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, reports from council. I will start with Councillor Schuster.
Not really a lot to report. This guy's been hard at work up at the mine site, so aside from that, everything's awesome, I assume.
Everything is awesome. Not much to report.
Thank you, Councillor.
Oh, everything is awesome. It's gonna be hard to talk, but I wanted to say that had a really nice evening at Century 21 with the chamber folks, and some really good conversations there, along with Councillors Drew Smith and Mayor Milligan. And I also attended a lovely function at the library celebrating women's stories. And I would really like to thank Emma Dressler and Alana Rybar and staff. And there were ladies there from grade 9, how old are you, grade 9, 13, who in in the eighties. We did have to reveal our age, like I had to admit that I'm a boomer, so, but other than that, it was a lovely evening. And that's all.
Thank you. Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you, Worship. Not too much to report this week.
Thanks so much. Councilor Armstrong.
Thanks, Your Worship. I don't know if you spoke about the strategy session that we had. I thoroughly enjoyed that with the staff and with my colleagues here. I'm looking forward to the strategic plan coming through and working through that through the year.
Thank you, Councilor Armstrong.
Saving the best for last, everything is awesome.
I did say the best for last, and that's me.
Awesomeness.
Yeah, I don't have much to report in addition. I'm still unaware of Councillor Buddy Kelly's request. But right back actually from Cranbrook today, I participated at the invitation of the RCMP in a cultural and Indigenous policing workshop with Tanaha and St. Eugene Mission and sort of a cultural awareness presentation, and quite frankly, it was excellent. I was really impressed. I had to duck out a little early to get back, which was unfortunate because the presenter, Michelle Sam, was gripping. I was super impressed, very personal and very powerful. So I am sorry we had to duck out, but if it's offered again, or if I get wind of or others get wind of Michelle presenting, please take advantage of it or alert others, because it's yeah, pretty exceptional.
What's the last name?
Sam.
Michelle Sam.
Yeah, SAM. And now with that, we'll ask for a resolution to close with the following staff recommendations.
The community closed the public pursuant to section 90 sub 1 sub B of the community charter, as the subject matter being considered at this time relates to the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements that council considers the disclosure of could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality.
Thank you, Guy. Mover, Councillor Hamilton, seconder, Councillor Audia Kelly. Any discussion? All those in favor? We shall adjourn to close. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us this evening.